Yeah, so let's start. Thank you everyone for being here. I'd like to, as some of you know me, and also some of you don't know me, I'd like to start quickly with just a little bit of my background so you can understand where I'm coming from, especially for the people that don't know me. Then who is this person? Who is Ricardo? Who is what he's talking about? From what background he's talking about in this talk today? I have four university degrees. One of them in business administration, another in applied psychology, and a couple of them in IT, IT management in general. I have several university awards, academic awards. I have worked as a CEO, head of people and culture, head of HR, head of customer success, operations manager, management consultant, entrepreneur. Today, I own my own company, and I've owned other companies in the past as well. During the organizations that I worked, I managed to help the organizations achieve a really good result. And the most recent organization that I worked with, which is GoOne, which is a very successful Australian startup based here in Brisbane. I started with them when they were 15 employees. They grew to 250 employees in about 4 years. And we, as head of people and culture there, we managed to receive quite a few different interesting HR awards, such as kind of best to work for type of awards. I've also reverted NPS scores as head of customer success there in different companies as well to really good ones, achieving even NPS as high as 94% and 100% customer satisfaction score in many months in a row. And currently, I left my job at GoOne to start my own company called MindCheck. Today it's called INEA MindCheck. And we've been helping about 10,000 people every month to address issues around the mental health, especially around anxiety, depression, and stress, and burnout, and so forth as well. We have helped over 200,000 people so far, and we will soon be helping a million people if things go as we are planning. But that's it for my background. So let's go towards the actual questions and the conversation that we planned for today. So the idea today was really, I was explaining to Sandra, I was head of people and culture at GoOne, which is a very successful startup. And I built the HR there from scratch. And a lot of people come to me and ask, Ricardo, how did you do in GoOne to create such an amazing culture? And I thought I would just open up the space because I know there are a lot of people in HR that have those questions. That would be interesting to know what we did at GoOne. Sherman? Hello, Sherman. So yeah, basically today is to be an open conversation for you to ask me questions and for me to answer with the things that I learned in GoOne and throughout my career as a consultant, a HR executive, head of customer success, and general executive in companies that really did well. Um, so, hello, Sherman. Can I
Hi
see you?
Ricardo, sorry, I had some technical issues. I think I've joined again now.
That's okay. You're a double here, but it's all good. More people join there. As I was explaining to them, it is supposed to be an open conversation. I have a few questions prepared from people who could not be in here. I had about 14 people signed up, but many of them told me the time wasn't good, so they asked me questions and they want to see the recording. I have a few questions here that I want to answer, but because you guys are here, do you have any specific topics that you want me to cover, or any specific questions around HR or culture or leadership or startups that you want answered today?
I had a question. It may be similar to a question from, I guess, a few other people in the audience, and maybe it's the same as ones which have been submitted already. My question is, obviously you've been in a company which had quite rapid growth. You said 150 to 250 employees, which is close to double. And managing, culture during a period of growth can be quite challenging.
Yeah.
What were, I guess, the major themes or areas of focus that you did during that period at Go One, I think?
Yeah, no, that is exactly the number one question that I have here in my list. Um, the I think the you have to start thinking about about culture, which is the most important thing that HR needs to focus on from the very early stage. Since the company starts to think about having a HR person, um, like around 15, 20 employees or 30 employees, people start thinking about having a HR person at this stage already, or at least having someone focusing on HR part time. You need to start thinking about culture. And the number one thing, there's actually three things that I think they are extremely important, and we did in Go On very well. One is properly defining what is the culture that you want. That includes all the core values talk, the work on creating the core values, but also choosing good values that have been proven in other organizations that do create exceptional organizations. And there are a few. I have some annotations here. Values such as empathy, love of learning, having people who are really givers, more givers than takers. And there's a really good TED video on that as well. And people who have initiative. So having that list of core values really well defined, and not only by HR, but by the founders of the business. And the founders need to take those values to heart. It needs to be their values. And sometimes I don't know if you guys have used the VIA character, inventory of strengths. Have you used those before? It's basically a psychometric survey that shows creativity, judgment, perspective, bravery, and a few other things. Uh, I would apply those questionnaires to the founders of the organization, and from that you would build the value of the core values of the organizations. As I said, there are a few things that are very important for you to find in new people, for you to have in the core values of the organization, such as empathy, initiative, love of learning. And once you have that well defined, you would have kind of that the first item on building a great culture, which is core values and the culture that you want to build very well defined. The second thing that is essential to building an amazing culture is properly hiring people and only keeping people inside the organizations that are aligned to your values. And I was talking to Sandra just now about training people in interviewing. The right way for interviewing, let me just go back to here. The right way for interviewing, not the right way, but a good way for interviewing that have been proven scientifically to be much better than an unstructured interview is for you to use structured interviews. And I'll show you a few things that I use in Go On and other organizations as well. So use structured interviews with behavior interviewing questions, and follow a properly structured process to hire people. Early on, it's very easy for founders and HR people to interview people for 15 minutes and to hire them, which is, I personally believe, is an absurd. I mean, we all know that what makes the culture is the people. What makes the company is the people. What makes performance in the company is the people. So if you think by talking with someone for 15 minutes, you're gonna decide if that person is good enough for your organization, even though there are thousands of known biases that you might have while interviewing. It is very naive and really not the right way to do it. So if you can see here, I can share this with you guys as well. I have, for Go On, I create an internal course in Go using the system on how to interview, and I share with all hiring managers in Go On. And I've trained other people internally, in person as well as online, on how to interview, how to run structured interviews, how to prepare for them, how to have something like this, which is a way for you to put your jobs characteristics, for example, and then you have your culture characteristics here on the side, your soft skills that you want to see in the people, alongside with the values that you want to see in the people, and with a scoring system that is consistent across all candidates, so you can properly match candidates against each other, and you can kind of check for biases, check notes between at least two interviews, so you can see if someone picks something that the other person doesn't pick. So properly hiring is essential to build a great culture. Culture is basically made of people, and the people you put in the organization will make up the culture of it. So if you want to create an amazing culture with high performance people, happy people, and basically have an organization that will grow fast and well, you have to have the right people in. To have the right people, you have to define the values, as we did here, and the kind of the behaviors and values that you want to see in those people, and you have to interview them and select people based on those behaviors and values. And you have to have a structure for that. And so creating a structured interviewing process with the behavior interviewing questions and having a couple of people interview those people and compare notes in a structured manner is essential. And the third pillar of creating an amazing culture is really it's leadership. It's making sure you have your founders understanding what is good leaders. You have senior leaders, mid leaders properly placed there because they are good leaders. There's a video that I can also share by an organizational psychologist. It's a TED video that he says that it's incredible. That he says that there is a pathological mismatch between what people believe are good leaders, or what attracts us to leaders, and what actually makes good leaders. A lot of people think that a charismatic person is a good leader. There's no correlation between a person being charismatic and being a good leader. People who have a lot of confidence to being good leaders, there is no really correlation between confidence and good leadership. Actually, it's the contrary, and a few other things. So when you are promoting someone to a leadership position, there's a lot of pitfalls that you might fall. One of them is, for example, this kind of mismatch between what people think good leader is and what actually good leaders are. Being confident, charismatic, not characteristics that make a good leader. Although they do not exclude good leaders either, but you're looking for people who have integrity, who are humble, who have a lot of empathy and really want to help other people, and having good emotional intelligence as well. And also a lot of people promote people into leadership positions, and they fall into what is called the Peter principle. I don't know if you've heard of the Peter principle. It's that you promote people until their level of incompetence. So you have good technical people or good people that is really good in one specific job, and you keep promoting them to different jobs that require different skills that are not in line with this person's strengths. So yeah, exactly. Let me just find the. Oh, sorry. A lot of people are trying to get in here. Hello, David. So I was explaining to the team here what are the pillars basically of creating a great culture, and for me there are three pillars, and they are defining what a great culture is and choosing the right values for the culture. The second one is hiring properly, which is essential. Culture is people. The organization is people. Performance is made by people. So if you have to have the right people inside, and you have to root out the people who are not good, who are toxic, or who kind of subtract from the organization as well. And as Sandra is putting here, practitioners or specialists often get promoted and they are not good at leading. And that's correctly right. I was explaining the Peter principle, in which you promote people because they are good at one job until they are incompetent. So people are being promoted until their level of incompetence, until they reach incompetence, which is not what you want in organizations. You should promote people not by how they are performing in their current job, but if they have the skills or they have the potential to do well in the next job, the job they are promoting, you are promoting them to. And obviously, I mean, there are a lot of people with potential that you need to provide leaders. And then there's lots of leadership training out there. They are good. They are like leadership training around empathy, emotional intelligence, situational leadership, and all sorts of different leadership training out there that you should apply internally. But you should have the raw material, which is the person. You have to have the right raw material for the position there. That includes senior leaders. And it's very easy in a startup. And I've seen this in many organizations. It's very easy for a startup for founders to hire people that they know, people that they impress them, to senior leadership position that they are not really appropriate for that position. So it's a delicate situation in which there is a lot of kind of personal relationship involved in there, and you have to get a lot of rapport and become a trusted advisor for the founder, for you to influence them and ask them kind of to respect the proper hiring process for the startup, the recruiting process. They have to follow it even for senior leaderships. And also be very careful with recruiters. There are really good recruiters out there, but a lot of recruiters, they say they know how to find the right candidate, they know how to get the right culture fit candidate for you, even hire senior leaders candidates, but they will never do the proper hiring process that you, as an internal person in the organization, as a HR leader or organizational leader, should do, which is to go through the proper interview process, the proper structure recruiting process, which is essential to creating an amazing culture. So that is, I guess, the first question. Any other questions?
I wanted to ask you, when you have to scale really quickly with staff in a business, like, suddenly you've got funding, everything's moving, and all of a sudden you've got to hire a whole lot of people with all different job descriptions. How do you kind of manage putting all of that together in a small team? Like maybe you've only got one or two people to help.
Yeah, that is a great question, and I've experienced that in Goan and in other organizations as well. In Goan, for example, I was the sole HR person till almost 100 employees, and I basically built the HR from scratch there when we were 20, maybe 30 employees, and I became head of HR at that point. And it is a lot about huge focus and prioritization. You, as a small company, need to focus, especially as a HR in a small company, and a company that is growing fast, as you said, need to focus on a few very key things and just get rid of everything else. Or not get rid, but they have to be extremely practical in what you implement. For example, I wouldn't think about performance reviews until the company is about 200, 300, or even 500 employees, especially because performance reviews is something that it's a monumental task. And actually, many organizations are even dropping. Many of the big organizations out there are even dropping. So HR at that point need to focus really on hiring, in hiring well. Hiring is the most important thing. Once you are in that stage that you're hiring like hundreds of people in a few months, which we had in Goan, and I interviewed personally almost all of them, it becomes quite chaotic. But you have to recruit. You have to basically partner up with the hiring managers, with other people in the organization that are like potential colleagues of the person that you are hiring. You teach them how to interview, and you do the interviews like I do once, the interview with this candidate, and the second interview you do it, and we compare notes. And you just prioritization on hiring, because that is the raw material of your code, the raw material of the whole organization. It's the people, so you need to do that right. And that's basically it. There's a structure that I like to use in the interviews in themselves that I can share with you. You need to not only hire the right people, but you need to advertise your organization to the candidates, all the candidates, the people you're hiring, and the people you're not hiring. And you do that best when you're interviewing them, and also when you're talking with recruiters. You need to be a believer in the organization you're working for. So you need to believe in their mission, you need to believe in their values, you need to live and breathe their values as a HR person. And I've always been very passionate about the organization I work for, including Goan. Goan was amazing. And when you're talking with candidates, when you're talking with recruiters about the culture internally, that conversation needs to be passionate and genuine from you. And you need to paint the picture that you want to create in the organization. You want to paint that you are creating. Basically, a lot of things in businesses, in startups themselves, are self-fulfilling prophecies. So you need to believe and act to create what you want, what you're believing into. So you need to talk about the value and the culture you are creating in a way that this is what they will have because this is what you are creating there. And that passion rubs off in people, kind of people catch that passion. Recruiters were calling me several recruiters a day for months, trying to get not only kind of work with us, but also because they heard of candidates that get out of our interviews and say, wow, the company is amazing. I really want to work there. And actually talking to colleagues, other people that they knew, and having kind of word of mouth thing around the company. So at the end of the interview, I always separate a space for people. I usually interview for a full hour at least, and I'll leave at least 20 minutes, 10, 20 minutes for people to ask me questions about the job, about the company, and I would take any hook in that time, or even if they didn't have a question, I would explain to them the company about the mission, the vision, and what we are all about. And I will do a passionate sale to the person, really a company pitch to the candidate, even though if this person would not be hired, even though they would not be hired. I would pitch the company because I wanted the company to have an amazing profile in the market and a great word of mouth. And eventually, I mean, we got like now 3 years in a row. One has won one of the most companies, the most top talent in the world by LinkedIn, by their own algorithm. And we started receiving that when we started implementing the hiring process there. So yeah, basically with your question, Sandra, how do you do it? High prioritization, the kind of partnering up with a lot of people internally to do the interviews. I mean, partnering up with recruiters as well. If you have recruiters, ask them. I mean, teach them what you really want. Teach them how to interview as well, and making sure they only send to you people who are at least more or less aligned to what you're looking for. I'll tell you a story. I've put a post. I was really good at creating job posts, or at least posts that attracted a lot of people. And I did a post in Malaysia that attracted almost 2,000 people for one position when we were opening our Malaysian office there. And I mean, there's no way one person myself can go through 2,000 resumes. So I basically developed my own applicant tracking system to create a questionnaire and asking people to go through these first screening questionnaires, and then only people who pass the questionnaire will go through a phone interview, then to an in-person interview. So there are ways for you to streamline, to be practical about things. Creating quizzes, if it is a lot of people who have to kind of skim through in the resume session, create quizzes for it. But yeah, that's basically it. Did I answer your question?
I was wondering how you did it because you would have had a big job, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, there was a crazy time, but it was very fun actually. So much going on. And another thing that is important to create an amazing culture is to measure it. A lot of people don't know how to measure culture. There are a few things out there, a few tools out there, such as Culture Amp, that they give you culture in some generic terms. But I developed a tool. Basically, I transformed I transformed my climate survey into a culture survey. And I used to do it every 6 months in Goan and in maybe the last 3 or 4 organizations that I managed in the past. And it's a way for you to, within a survey, you would create questions aligned to each one of your values. And basically, using a scale, you would kind of create an alignment KPI to each of your values. So I would calculate that we were like 60% aligned to value number 1, 75% aligned to value number 2, and 80% aligned to value number 3. And for each value, there will be open-ended questions for people to tell me how we could improve on leaving those values in the organization. Aside from obviously a few climate questions, engagement questions in the survey as well. So that tool was very powerful because it allowed the employees to basically tell us how the culture was, aligned to the values that we wanted to see in terms of behaviors and core values, and what to do to improve them. So I would go through every office, the whole organization, kind of do the statistical, the kind of the data analysis on it, and pinpoint the key issues that we would need to focus on to improve the culture. It's not only a climate survey, but it was a climate and culture survey, especially because we integrated the values inside of it. So I don't think kind of one of those ready-made tools such as Culture Amp would allow you to create your own questions and areas in the survey. Maybe yes, but I created my own using Google Forms and did the analysis by myself, and I could have really specific idea on how the culture was. The trend of the culture index, I mean, you can just aggregate everything into one culture alignment index, which we tracked over time, and you can see it go on increasing slightly because culture takes a long time to change, but you could clearly see going from 65% to 68% to 72% to 78% and going down one bit and then going up another bit. So every 6 months we will do that, and you have to have a finger on the pulse of the culture for sure. So that survey, that tool that we use internally there, was very important for us to measure it and to improve the culture as well.
Ricardo, I've got a question. If there's enough time available.
Sure, yeah, there is. We have until 6 here, half an hour more, 25 minutes more.
Fantastic. So I think Sandra's question about scaling and from startup to scale up is a good segue for my question. I've seen many people talking about adaptability.
Yeah.
And having worked myself for 5 years in a few different startups, that's a given. If you're not adaptable, I think you're totally out of the game. So my question for you is twofold. One is there a way for HR to somehow assess adaptability in a candidate? And also from a candidate perspective or from a HR advice perspective, what would be your recommendation for someone to increase their own adaptability?
Good, great questions. There are ways for you to check adaptability. Let me just share my screen here. I'll show a few of the values that I have here in this structured template here. So a few of the values that I look for in this one, in this mock one here, is create intelligence and past results, empathy, initiative, creativity, candor, love of learning, respect, communication, teamwork, and so forth. Adaptability is one that you could have there as well, and all of these are behaviors. And for you to assess behaviors, you have to observe or ask people to describe how they behaved in the past. That is the whole premise of behavioral interviewing. Behavioral interviewing basically has the premise that past behavior is a lot more indicative of future behavior than what people will basically tell what they kind of theories that they could spill out, So behavioral interviewing usually asks questions around how did you behave in the past? So a few of the questions that are key for me, for example, that I ask in every interview are something like this. Tell me of a time when you improved the process in your job by your own initiative. So what needed improvement? How did you find out it needed improvement? And what did you do? And you keep probing. So you're basically asking for real cases in the past that a person found a problem or found a situation that they have to face it. And how did they behave that? What did they do? Did they ask for help? Or did they adapt or not? So that you could frame a few questions. And I have a bank of questions here that I can share with you guys as well, with hundreds of behavior interviewing questions. Some of them situation interviewing questions there as well. But basically, no interview is 100% kind of perfect, obviously. And you always, in every hiring process, you always hire people who shouldn't be there. And it just increases your probability of getting the right person. But by asking behavior interviewing questions, you can have a better idea of behaviors such as adaptability, initiative, creativity, and a few other very important soft skills that we really need to look for in that. That's why many of when you create your core values, many of them will be described in terms of behaviors as well. This is how we behave. This is what we value and how we behave in the organization. So it is essential for you to have in your interviewing questions questions that will try to kind of expose those behaviors in the person in past situations, so that you understand if they are in this case, if they have showed if they are good at it, if they are a star, if they showed kind of indications of that behavior or that skill basically or not. Yeah. So I would find out a few good behavior interviewing questions around adaptability. I'm sure that I might have a few of them there. I don't remember anyone specifically, but by using a few of those key questions that I ask, you can sometimes in the probing question say, hey, but what did you do? Did anything unexpected happen, for example, during that project that you were working on? And they will tell what was unexpected. So what did you do around that? So you would try to understand how they adapted to the situation, for example. That would be kind of a probing question for adaptability. And you kind of lead the conversation, the interview around that value and try to figure out if the person is demonstrating that or not. In terms of you increasing your own adaptability, I guess there's a few things that you could do. First, you would need to have a growth mindset. So I would research around like growth mindset. There's that lady who invented the term. There's a TED Talk with her, and a few good materials there. I forgot her name. Instead of a fixed mindset, and you first have to kind of understand that you can be adaptable, and then it will be kind of reframe the situations. You have to create mindsets in yourself and in your team that will be more positive. Say, hey, there is always a way for you to achieve things. There is always a way to at least many ways to achieve different things. We just have to find one. And put yourself in situations that you are faced with challenges that will make you adaptable, I guess. Not shy away from them and really facing them with that mindset that you can overcome it. And also ask around. I mean, when you're in a situation that you are facing a challenge, maybe you don't have the answer, but some other people might. Just bring a team together, talk to it with your spouse, with a few colleagues, and expose the situation, and they maybe find a solution. So that kind of recruiting other people to your team, basically, to help you out, also increases a lot your adaptability in terms of finding solutions to unexpected problems. So that is something that I do, and I encourage people to do as well.
Awesome. Would you go like outside work, maybe try to play an instrument that you are clueless about, a new language, or a new sport, or give yourself challenges outside of work?
Yeah. Any situation. I mean, adaptability is a soft skill, isn't it? So a soft skill, it not only applied at work, it's applied in life in general. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
No worries, David. I have a few other questions. Do you guys have more questions? I mean, this is an open conversation or experience to share. I'll be loving to learn from you guys as well.
I do have another question.
Sure, awesome. Excellent.
You asked more than I should have. Is there a way to find some kind of checklist for leaders, perhaps if they are that practitioner that's moved forward, to sort of be able to tick off a list and go, okay, these are my strengths, these are my weaker areas, this is what I need to improve on, and kind of tweak it as they grow? Is there something like that out there available?
There are a few psychometric tests that test for emotional intelligence and leadership. I mean, there's some good materials from Google as well that they list the characteristics of good leadership via their huge data analysis they had with tens of thousands of employees that they have. So they create a kind of a list of what makes a good leader, which I have used in the past. It's very interesting.
I'm looking at some like some content that I'm putting together at the moment, and I want to have a focus on leadership and and giving people tips and tricks about leadership and so forth.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put together like a free giveaway that would give them ways to improve communication and leadership skills, and just have sort of like useful tips and tricks for them. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of good information out there like that. So I don't really want to reinvent the wheel, but maybe I
Yeah.
have to.
I found a few good things around, like Google usually is very data driven, so they post a lot of their findings online. So there are guides here, and it is rework. There are guides on how to develop and support managers, for example. They may even might have a few checklists like that. Yeah, I can try to find, Sandra. I'll try to find it and send it to you, Sandra.
Thanks. Yeah, I will have a look through that Google rework stuff and just see if
Yeah,
there's any.
I will post it here in the chat so you can have the link. Where is it?
I didn't know about that. Thank you. That's really
Yeah, they have good stuff there. Specifically because they do their own analysis, and they have a ton of employees to base their internal analysis on, and they are very scientifically minded and data driven, which is important. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Uh, More questions? Uh,
I've got a few comments around Sandra's question. I mean, as I'm not from HR, but I've been an employee of many different organizations of all different sizes, and maybe among 17 or 18 different employers, there are probably two or three that are great leaders, and the more organizations I work with and I work for, I think the more these sort of leadership characteristics and traits they speak out to me. One of them is transparency, and transparency also leads you to potentially to openness. Humble, humility. There's a whole bunch of books and different articles these days talking about humble leadership as well. And I think there's another term, Ricardo, correct me if I'm wrong. There's people talking about service leadership, right?
yeah,
Basically, the leader that works for the benefit of his team, instead of trying to get his vision across, his ways across, and all that jazz.
yeah. The serving leader kind of leadership style, it comes already from many decades ago, but it's always one that I liked particularly. There's a really few really good books around it. There are many books around it actually, and they talked about the inverted pyramid that the leader is supposed to serve the rest of the organization. It is a really good mindset to have for leaders, for you to be there to support everyone else. I just posted here in the chat a link with a TED talk of an organizational psychologist. He's a professor. He's really good professor from one of a few of the big universities in the U.S. And he talks specifically about the characteristics of great leaders and why, as I was talking, people get promoted to leadership positions that shouldn't be there, and that trap of charisma and confidence. And it's a very entertaining talk, so I recommend you guys to watch it as well. But yeah, I mean, those guides that you find in Rework and a few other places online, I'm sure I have quite a lot of material on leadership here, and I can send to you, Sandra. They do have a list of characteristics, of attributes of leaders that they make great leaders. And there is a lot of good research around that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to, I'm not a leadership coach,
Yeah.
I'm a recruiter,
Yeah.
but I like every month to have a theme around, different topics that appeal to people
Yeah.
in my sector. And yeah, I'm thinking next month probably to do something around leadership. So yeah, I don't want to kind of spruik anything that I'm not, but I'm happy to have a cheat sheet.
It's important. Obviously, the more people know about leadership, the better, isn't it? It's just leadership is
Well, I think in some ways everybody's a leader in their own way. I mean, even, you could say that the person at reception is a leader because they're leading the face of your business, how the phone is answered, how people are treated when they walk through your front door. And there's a sense of leadership in everybody. It's just some have more responsibility than others.
Yeah, and exactly. And I think I'm a little bit hesitant in people. I mean, everyone is a leader, obviously, of their lives. But I think that with time, and I've seen this. I was a management consultant since my 20s, and I work in a lot of organizations, kind of developing people and so forth. And I've seen over time the term manager to become something that is very disassociated with leadership, and the term leaders very disassociated with managers. And a good, I mean, leaders, yes, everyone can be a leader, even though if they don't have the position of manager, or if you don't have a management position, if they don't have a team under them. And they should be a leader of their lives or their projects and so forth. But the term manager is an important one. And people, when they are managers, they have a team. And effective managers need to be effective leaders. And there are a lot of people who are managers who are not leaders, and they shouldn't be in that position as managers because they're not leaders. But when we talk about good managers, they are the people who we are talking around. What are the leadership that you have in the organization? You need to have people leading teams, the managers of the teams being great leaders. So my point is really not to shy away to the term managers, and try to find good leaders to put in the management position there, which is important as well. Yeah.
That's a tricky point here in Australia, isn't it? Because you have lots of management positions who aren't necessarily
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the term manager also has gone completely crazy. You have project managers, you have account managers, you have lots of managers who are not really people managers. And now you're talking about a lot of leaders who don't have teams as well because they are like leaders of their lives, or leaders have leadership qualities, but they are not really people leaders. So we have to choose a term to use like people leaders or something like that to show, to refer to people who actually lead teams internally. And these people have a huge impact in the organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. We see it all the time. Someone will say, "Oh, I need to recruit an office manager."
Yeah.
And then I'll say, "So how many people are they managing?" And they're like, "No one.
No, they're just managing
The office is being
the
managed.
office, yeah.
Like they're an office coordinator."
Yeah, but not to detract this. I mean, these people have a lot to work and a lot of things to organize and so forth. And also, I mean, yeah, people who manage projects, they do manage projects. They interact with a lot of people. They manage the project and manage accounts and so forth. But it is a bit confusing these days to use the terms leaders and managers. Anyways, we have to find a better way, I guess. What else? More questions?
You talked, as soon as I joined, you were talking about potentially not having any performance review for companies below maybe 300 or 500 staff.
Yeah.
And taking this back into culture, I think by far the best company that I worked at and for was Red Hat, and their culture was built on very strong values that people lived and breathed every single day.
Yep.
And what was interesting with the performance review process is that the cultural values were embedded into the performance review.
Yeah.
And they even had like an internal award system for people who were displaying that they were sticking to a specific value.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite an interesting way to go about it. Obviously, again, looking at the Australian market, the company sizes are quite different.
Yeah.
When you look into bigger markets, so maybe a medium company over here might be considered something above 50 or above 100
Yeah,
staff.
yeah, yeah. The performance review is in the HR world is something of a very hard subject to talk about. There is so much dislike for it from the employee point of view, from the manager point of view, from the HR point of view, that many organizations are killing it. Simply not having, even big organizations. I remember reading, I don't know if they're still killing it, but Adobe, which is one of the biggest tech companies in the world, were killing performance reviews. Simply because there is, first, there is very little objectivity in performance reviews. There's too much subjectivity in it. Most people who get review, they hardly think it's fair. It takes, for you to do a reasonably decent process, takes a huge amount of hours from managers, from employees, from HR, and you have to have a lot of extra stuff to actually pull it off because it's so labor intensive to send a review to one person, to send a review to the other person, to put it together, to have conversations with the employees. And it's a very cumbersome, inaccurate, subjective process that a lot of people are not very fond of, and may create bad consequences. Well, a lot of performance reviews that is done, and I don't like that way that is done, is individual performance reviews in which you have kind of an individual KPI, such as sales or certain KPI of, and that is another thing. There are certain jobs such as a HR manager or a person who a receptionist. How do you measure performance like in a KPI? I mean, how do you find meaningful one or two KPIs to meaningfully give an indication of performance? A few people like salespeople are much easier, but other people are very much harder. When companies attach their performance reviews with bonuses, with rewards, and that is the biggest danger that is, and so forth. When they attach to these rewards, these external rewards, you are effectively creating a very individualistic culture. And we know that the best cultures are not individualistic. The culture in which employees are most happy they are better performing others, that have the best retaining of employees, are the companies that focus on people collaborating with each other and not kind of cutting each other off. So if you start creating rewards based on individual KPI, individual performance, you will effectively kind of naturally create people who are individualistic because they want to get their reward. They want to get their bonus at the end of the month. And not really focus on being cooperative. So it is a very nuanced thing. It's a very kind of hard to see it clearly, but over time you clearly see the culture going to the individualistic side, and people getting less and less satisfied and less happy in it. So there are ways to kind of counteract that, to kind of create team KPIs and have team performance as a bonus and so forth, which are a little bit better. But it is kind of very destructive if you don't do it the right way. And I haven't seen, I personally, and I'm sure there are organizations out there that do it right, but I have not seen a really good performance review implemented in any organization so far. Even Google, if you have, I read all of the Google books there are, including the one written by a former head of people at Google. He dedicates a full chapter on performance review, and he said, "Mate, this is terrible. It is imperfect. We create a huge system. What I think should be done is really simplifying it a lot, making it a lot more informal, legally allowed, obviously, making it a lot more informal, and a couple of weeks or every month to talk about behaviors, talk about the values, talk about how specific projects are going on, and then doing that kind of informal catch up around what this person needs to improve, what are the challenges they're achieving, and really getting them to be more of a coach than a performance reviewer. and having less formality around it and more like a positive spin to it and trying to really making the employee succeed in their job. Obviously, if the employee is not succeeding, might be either through a lack of behavior or lack of skill or lack of ability in some way, then this needs to be talked in these one-on-ones and it needs to be addressed, and you need to give some kind of term for employees to improve and help them, really coach them to improve. But eventually, if they don't improve, you let them go or you change them to a different position that they could be better. So the performance management needs to happen all the time. But I don't think the traditional performance review is the right way of doing it. They more like treat it like one-on-ones, kind of personal coaching between the manager and the employee. It is the better way to do it as of now, I guess, unless I find that something different. Yeah. But I like the idea of using, and I've implemented this in the past, kind of the traditional, we used to have performance reviews in which the manager will rate the employee in specific job skills as well as the values. So they will give us like a rate from 0 to 10 in each value and then explain why they gave that rating. But then there is also a lot of subjectivity around it. Maybe the manager sees this in a certain way. Another manager might see it in a different way. So what Google does is that many different managers and employees rate the same person. And they have kind of a conversation around it. They have a subjective alteration of the scores, which is extremely time consuming in a way to kind of make it a little bit more fair, which is completely unfeasible for a company that has 500 or less employees for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I still remember myself collecting emails and a whole bunch of documents to try and justify my own grades.
Yeah, exactly. I was talking to someone else around the ideas for kind of job progression, and I like the way of gamifying that. Let's say for you to achieve your job level 2 with that kind of new salary, you need to fulfill these certain requirements. You have to have X amount of time in your position. You have to have achieved this KPI. You have to have you have to have I don't know, trained or coached a few of your colleagues, up to 3 colleagues. So kind of create a kind of a checklist for a person to check it off. You have to have achieved like this amount of sales for at least 3 months in a row. And so once the person ticked all of those things off, and you have to have kind of the sign off of your manager saying that you have these new skills for your new job, for example, because you have to have the skills of the new job, as we were talking about before. So that also allows people to focus on that skills that they need to have for the next job and develop those things. So you have to learn this and this and that. So once the person ticks off all those things in performance, learning, and so forth, they are ready for the new position. And if it becomes available, it's yours, for example. Or you get your next salary or so forth. All right, any last questions? We're just a little bit after 6, but I can still answer any questions if you have any more.
I'm good, thank you.
No worries, Sandra. Thank you for participating. Mikaya?
Yeah, none for me. Thanks for talking, man. It was very, very interesting and informative.
No worries. Thank you, David. And you guys are my contacts on LinkedIn. I don't know if you are Mikaya, but contact me in LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to add you in. And if you anytime you need to ask a question or just have a conversation like this, I'll be more than happy. I really like helping other people out, and especially because I believe that this makes better organizations and better coaches and make people's lives better. So yeah, so if you guys want to talk more about it, let me know. I'll be happy to do it.
Hey, Ricardo, just a quick comment. I think I'm a marketer by nature. So I recently got in touch, and I'm on the Slack channel with BDO for startups.
Yeah.
So they kind of open for different professions. Obviously, their forte is on accounting and business modeling advice and all that. But if you're interested in maybe extending this sort of conversation to the startups that are in this group, or even talking directly to the guy at BDO, I'm happy to facilitate an introduction.
Yeah, that'd be great, man. That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'm always looking for a few consulting or gig opportunities. I mean, I still head of my own startup, but I always like to do these little jobs here and there to help other people and to have some extra money coming in as well. It's always good.
Awesome. So if you want to flick through an email or even LinkedIn message, I'll put you in touch with the right people.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, David. Thanks so much, man.
No
Thank you,
worries.
Sandra. Thank you, Mikaya, and hope you have a great
Thanks,
rest of the
you.
day. Yeah.
Talk to you next
Thank you.
week.
Bye.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thanks, Ricardo.
Thanks. Bye bye.